What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Better Plays Ahead. Matt Williams is out this week, but I am filling in for him. My name is Sam Wagman. You can find me on Twitter at Swagman95. And with me, as he is every week, is our betting analyst, Frank Ammirante. Frank, what's going on, man? How you doing today?
What's up, Sam? You know what I say, every Thursday feels great. It's the start of a new NFL week on the season. We've been killing it on this show. I know you're just going to fill in great, and your bets are going to be just as on scorching hot as Matt, so not to worry to the audience. We're going to stay hot for you. We killed it last week and the week before. Really, we've been doing great all year. Looking to keep that going today with our Week 7 best bets.
I mean, absolutely. And you guys are really, really crushing it. 13-4 last week, up 17 units and up 39 units on the season. I mean, absolute domination from you and Matt so far. I can only hope that I live up to it. But we have a full slate of games to talk about for week 7. So with that said, let's get right into the chalkboard. So I will let you kick this off. You have a parlay for us to give out. So why don't you go ahead and break that right down?
Yeah, so I got a parlay of two road favorites, starting with the Cleveland Browns on the money line. And the real thing, the appeal for this for me really is Cleveland's pass defense, which is first in EPA, against Gardner Minshew, who's really struggling. If you look at PFF, he ranks 39th among quarterbacks in passing grade. I think he's going to have a really tough time against this defense. The Colts will really struggle to move the ball, put up points. Deshaun Watson returned to practice today, which leaves me hopeful that he'll play. Even if he's a little bit limited, I'm not too concerned really, because that defense is a problem, man. Jim Schwartz, their new defensive coordinator, is doing a terrific job really getting them to play at their highest level. And I think they'll really slow down the Colts there. And I'm adding the Raiders on the money line. And really, this is just a fade of Tyson Bagent. I really don't have much high hopes for him in his first career start. He struggled against the Vikings in relief of Justin Fields last week. If we look at his PFF passing grade for that game, it was 40th. And, you know, I know he'll have a full week of practice, which could help him. But still, I got to go with the Raiders. I think they'll feed Devontae Adams, who spoke publicly about needing more targets. Even if Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't play, you know, a lot of observers were excited about Aiden O'Connell with how he looked in the preseason. So I think the Raiders have the quarterback advantage in this potential battle of backups, and give me them on the money line. You parlay these two to cut out that juice. You don't want to be laying minus 155 with a team like the Raiders. So we put it in a parlay and we get plus 175 odds for a decent little two-teamer.
Yeah, I like the chalk on that play because, look, the Browns showed us that they can be one of the best defensive teams in football. And in the last time that we saw Deshaun Watson, he put up arguably his best game as a Brown, 280 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. So he looked really good. And, you know, that was something that we've kind of been waiting to see for the last year and a half at this point. And then getting the Raiders on the money line there against Tyson Bagent, who's a D2 quarterback who, you know, basically was on his couch a week ago, you know, not really expecting to really do anything until Justin Fields goes down. I don't have a lot of hope there either. So I do like that play. For my chalk play, I'm going to go with the Bills -9. This was bet up to -9 at the start of the day, -8.5. But look, the Bills against the Patriots, there's not much of a competition here. The Patriots on my NFL power rankings that you can find over at thegameday.com, they are the 31st ranked team in the NFL. They're just not that good. Mac Jones has somehow gotten benched in 2 of the last 3 games, but is still technically the starting quarterback. The Bill O'Brien experiment is not working, and they just have no offensive cadence whatsoever. Now they go up against the Bills team that is angry. They came off the loss in London. They looked extremely flat against the Giants last week, only winning at the last second. I think this is going to be a really big blowout spot for the Bills in a matchup against the Patriots that they have won by double digits each of the last 4 times that they played. And now, you know, when we look a little bit more into the statistical aspect of things, the Bills in DVOA terms are 3rd in passing. The Patriots rank 23rd in defensive DVOA against the pass. It's not their strength. Their strength is defending the run, as it has been all season. And to add to that, they're still missing a bunch of corners. So obviously Christian Gonzalez is out for the season. They have a few other injuries as well. So I'm just not that high on this Patriots team. Giving 9 points to the Bills. I think it's a big number, but it's a number that Josh Allen could cover. I think the Bills are going to be really hungry in this game. I think we're going to see them throw early and throw often in an attempt to win this divisional matchup.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The Patriots look like a dumpster fire right now. I know they played a bit better last week, but they don't have the pieces in place on offense to keep up with Josh Allen and company. Like you said, they look lethargic. Buffalo did against the Giants. Looks like a get right spot on the road against the Patriots. Not your father's Patriots or your or
Really?
your older uncle
or your older brother, even your older brother's
brother.
Patriots.
Yeah, it's bad times.
They're
dark
really just
days in New England.
Yep. But those are our chalkboard plays. So with the chalkboard plays, you also have to take into the fact of bad chalk. And we have a play for that right here. Frank, why don't you bring us into your It's a Trap play of the week?
So for the second week in a row, I'm targeting the Commanders game as my trap pick. You just want to stay away. Last week, I said to stay away from the Falcons at home, -2.5 against Washington. I'm a fan of this team. I know Washington could be inconsistent and up and down. Going into last week, they just got blown out by Chicago. People may have thought, Atlanta at home, they could win. What happened? Washington wins outright on the road. Now they're road favorites against their division rivals, the Giants, and really, I'm not comfortable taking them there. The Giants, we don't know if Daniel Jones is going to play, but even if Tyrod Taylor plays, he did an admirable job against Buffalo, keeping the offense on schedule, keeping it close. They almost won that game in Buffalo. The Giants have been bad, but I feel like in a division game, they could keep this close. I really don't have a side for this. This is a stay away. Sam Howell looks like a good streamer in fantasy football, but we've seen him make ill-advised turnovers, take inopportune sacks. The Commanders are a volatile team, and I prefer to be on them when they're underdogs. And I don't really want to take Giants +2.5. That's below the key number of 3. If it was 3.5, okay, I'd be maybe interested in the Giants plus the points. But with this line, I'm just totally out.
I have to respect the fact that you're not going with your hometown Commanders here, in a matchup where they should definitely win. I do have to respect that. I respect the fact that you are, realistic enough of the possibility of just a meltdown game from both of these teams, because let's be honest, both of these teams melt down at a very solid rate. Like, we even have video of Jahan Dotson practicing as the holder in practice. Like, this is the guy you drafted at 16th overall, and your coaching staff is trotting him out there as a holder on place kicks and field goals. And I don't understand it. It does not make any sense to me. But yeah, that is It's a Trap game of the week. Commanders -2.5. I would also stay far away from this game. Those gritty divisional matchups always scare me, because something always happens that you're not expecting in those games. And to be honest, I don't trust either team right now. Both teams have shown good and bad stretches, and you can't really depend when one of those stretches is going to show up for each of these teams.
Exactly.
Yep. So without further ado, let's get into the real meat of our show. Let's get into the betting board right now. We're going to break down our favorite picks. All right, I'm going to start it off here. I'm going to go with my spread bet of the week, and I am targeting another big favorite in this game in the San Francisco 49ers, -6.5. It's now moved to 7 over the Minnesota Vikings. This is a perfect, spot for, feel good supporters of the 49ers. 49ers obviously coming off a back-breaking loss against the Vikings last week. And the Vikings are coming off a win over the Chicago Bears. And if there's one thing that I have always learned that it stays true with me all the way through, it is that you fade Kirk Cousins in prime time. And this game is going on Monday Night Football. So, I know you write the Monday Night Football article. I'll be interested to see what you have to say in rebuttal to this or in support of it after. But I can't see this being anything other than a San Francisco blowout. What do you think?
Well, for one, I really like how you jumped on it earlier and got below that 7 points. So they just need to win by 7. You got that game below the key number of 7. That's big. And there's questions regarding if McCaffrey or Debo are going to play. But earlier in the week, it sounded a little more pessimistic. But as we've gotten closer to Monday Night Football, it's starting to sound like they might play. And with the Vikings without Jefferson, it's just tough sledding to keep up with this 49ers offense, especially after they just had a letdown losing to PJ Walker and that elite Browns defense that I spoke about earlier. Now it's a lot easier. Minnesota's defense is not nearly as good as Cleveland's. You could expect a bounce back game from San Fran. The play that I picked in this one in my Monday Night Football article at thegameday.com was I went at the over 44, was just because it was early in the week when I wrote it on Monday, when there was more uncertainty if McCaffrey and Debo would play. And I feel like once it's confirmed that they play, maybe that gets to 45, maybe 45 and a half. So I could hop on a pretty more favorable number. And, it just goes to how Minnesota's pass heavy and their defense isn't good. So if the 49ers jump out to a nice lead, and the Vikings could just be airing it out and push it over 44. But I do like your call on the spread. It's just hard to see Minnesota keeping pace. I'll just add a quick player prop that you could look at. Brandon Ayuk over, I believe it's like 65 and a half receiving yards. The Vikings rank like 28th against receivers in fantasy production. And if Debo's banged up, if McCaffrey's banged up, gives more opportunities for Ayuk. But to your point, Niners.
I absolutely think the Niners are the play here because the Vikings give up a 75% completion rate to quarterbacks right now. They're a sieve for passing defenses. I mean, they're rolling out some very bad corners here. I mean, Caleb Evans has been picked on all season. Byron Murphy is giving up 0.5 fantasy points per pass route. Josh Metellus has been extremely high targeted in the slot. I mean, even without Debo and without McCaffrey, I would be extremely worried for Minnesota's defense in this one. I do think coming off the worst game of his career so far, I think we're going to see Brock Purdy kind of rebound to the efficiency monster that he's been. And, to an efficient quarterback, Minnesota's defense is like one of the best things you can see because they give up such a high completion percentage versus quarterbacks. And I don't really see them being able to stop the speed at which San Fran's offense operates. I'm not too worried about the running back matchup either, even if McCaffrey doesn't play. Yeah. I think it's more important that we saw Trent Williams try to gut it out in last week's game and came back strong. I think that he's more the key to this offense than either McCaffrey or Debo is. So as long as he plays, I'm all in on this 49ers team. I think last week was a little bit of an anomaly. Plus, they went up against a really good defense. If Minnesota is anything, that's not it. So I will be looking for San Fran's DVOA and offense to really go out well. They rank second in total DVOA right now. They rank first in pass DVOA. So I'm very much looking forward to see them really just take it to the Vikings. Let's move on to our second play. You're on this AFC West matchup. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so I'm taking the Chargers plus 5.5 against the Chiefs. Justin Herbert's playing at a high level. Austin Eckler's back, giving him an elite weapon. It's a divisional game. The Chiefs offense really hasn't been, running at full form, top form right now. They've scored 24 points or fewer in 4 of their 6 games. We saw them they really came close against the Jets and Zach Wilson. They haven't been as explosive so far this year. Whereas Justin Herbert, I know he threw that interception at the end, but he's playing at a relatively high level this year. And if we look at their matchups against each other, in their last 6, the Chargers have won 2 of them. The Chiefs have won 4, but 3 of those 4 Chief wins were by 3 points, and 1 of them was by 6. It really comes down to the fact that the Chargers play them close. 5.5 points feels like a bit too much, especially with Eckler back. I know they're without Mike Williams, which takes away a deep threat for the Chargers, but I just feel like they'll still be able to move the ball, even against an improved Chiefs offense. I mean Chiefs defense, sorry. I just don't feel comfortable laying 5.5 on the Chiefs here. I think it could come down to a late field goal to decide this one. So I'm taking the underdog Chargers plus 5.5.
Yeah, this is an interesting spot for LA. It's a get right spot for them. Coming off that loss to the Cowboys, the one thing I worry about is Patrick Mahomes just slicing and dicing apart this secondary. Dak Prescott had his best game of the season passing against this team, and if you know me, my opinion of Dak Prescott is not high. But he looked really good against this Chargers secondary. So that's kind of what worries me. I worry that Brandon Staley gets in his own head and makes bad decisions based on that. So I'm always hesitant to back the Chargers. I'm especially hesitant to back them on the road. But, I could see some value. This ticks up to maybe 6.5 by the weekend. Could maybe see something come through there. I'm not quite sure on it, but you're doing a good job to try and convince me. I'll tell you that. I'm going to stick with this game. I'm going to take a player prop on the other side of it. I'm going to take Isaiah Pacheco over 15.5 receiving yards. Now, Pacheco has just really started to come into his own as a pass catcher. We haven't really seen him do anything since week 1 before last week's game in the pass catching game. They have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They have Jerick McKinnon. But last week, Pacheco's target share spiked to 16%. And the Chargers present a really good matchup for Pacheco in the fact that they rank second in the NFL in receiving yards allowed per game to running backs at 59.6. So this is another thing I'm talking about with this Chargers defense. They like to give up, chunk plays in spots. So I do think Pacheco is going to be on the field plenty. I personally think the Chiefs will win this game. And so I think we're going to see Pacheco have a little bit more of those opportunities for these high-value touches to come into play, which is another reason why I love to see him in this spot at such a low receiving yards number. He's hit 20% targets per route run in 4 of 6 games, and he has the highest route share of the Chiefs running backs this season. So Pacheco, who has really come out of nowhere as a 7th-round pick last year to be an extremely featured part of this Chiefs offense that does check the ball down plenty. Mahomes' magic can only extend so far. The offensive line has been a little bit sketch at times. So it'll be interesting to see if the Chargers can generate a pass rush to kind of force Mahomes out of the pocket and, dumping it off. I think we could see some screenplays interacted as well here. So this is a play that I love, Isaiah Pacheco over 15.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, I love that. They barely used Jerick McKinnon. You got to love the passing game usage from Pacheco here. I'm totally on board with you there. I will add one. Our boy, Rashee Rice. We've taken him the last 2 episodes. I just took him. It's not one of the plays on the show, but I'm going to mention it anyway real quick because this game, over, I believe, 33.5 receiving yards. This is a player who's got targets per route run over 30%, which is elite. As a rookie, you got to figure his role will continue to grow as he shows that he's probably the best receiver on this team. I know they added Mecole Hardman in a trade, but that was just to add a field stretcher after they lost Justin Watson. And we're, again, getting a low bar with Rashee Rice at 33.5 yards. The Chargers are the worst against receivers in fantasy production allowed. And, of course, I know I'm citing fantasy production, but yards are a part of that. So 33.5 is a low bar, and we'll go with that. But on to my next play. Or did you want to add something there?
Yeah, I also just wanted to say Rashee Rice is just performing so historically well. This is the type of production that we see from wide receiver 2s in fantasy and borderline wide receiver 1s, and he's doing it on a route share of like 30%. He's not even running a full complement of routes, and he's earning targets at such an elite rate that I can't help but think that he's one of those rookies that's going to spike over the course of the rest of the regular season. But let's go on to your last bet for the betting board. You have a prop, and it's a Cardinals player.
Yeah, let's go with Marquise Brown over 56.5 receiving yards. With James Conner out, the Cardinals are likely to continue to struggle running the ball against an improved Seahawks run defense. Bobby Wagner's helped them tremendously in that regard. They got Damian Williams, Keontae Ingram, and Amari DeMarcado running the ball. not a really good backfield. The Cardinals are going to have to air it out. They're 7.5-point underdogs, so they're projected to play from behind, which means we could see more passing volume. The Seahawks in fantasy production allowed to receivers are 27th. So Marquise Brown should have his way here. I think he'll be targeted early and often. And Josh Dobbs will look for him, especially after a down week last game. It's not even that high of a bar at 56.5. So we'll take him. He could get, 70, 80 yards in this game, which could be a sneaky higher scoring game than expected.
Yeah, I actually really like this bet. The Seahawks give up the 10th most or the 9th most yards per game to wide receiver ones, and actually, don't have that good of a DVOA against them. So I do think this is a good spot for you. And I think we're going to see Marquise Brown play a very heavy role in this game if the Cardinals want to stay aggressive. We saw they opened up the practice window for Kyler Murray. I think that's the clearest sign of all. They're not tanking. So I think they're going to want to stay competitive in this game. Hollywood Brown has looked good. He was a little bit off last week. He was a little bit sick, but all the reports are that he's better now. He's running a full complement of routes again. I think he's going to play a huge part in this game. All right, we have given you our favorite plays for the Sunday slate, but we still have a game tonight. And, it's a little bit of a snoozer, but it is Thursday night, and we have Thursday night football. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to the Mercedes-Benz Superdome to take on the New Orleans Saints. So let's dive into our Thursday night football picks. You want to start us off?
Oh, yeah, sure. So, sorry about that. I got on this one early. I took the Saints -1. It's now up to -2, and it really comes down to Trevor Lawrence being banged up. I know he's going to play, but he's not at 100% with that knee. The Saints' strength is their defense. They got a good front. I think they do have a good home field advantage as well. On a short week, it could be a tough spot for Jacksonville. They're also missing their top cornerback in Tyson Campbell, which will lead into my next play that I'll talk about. I just feel like the Saints at home will get a win here. Jacksonville's too banged up. They just had 2 games in London, came back home. Now they travel again on a short week. It just feels like a tough spot for Jacksonville here. And I'm rolling the dice. I'm taking New Orleans in my survivor pool as well, with everyone likely to be on Seattle, trying to, get contrarian in case a chunk of the pool gets out. But give me New Orleans. All they got to do is win. We got at -1. Even at -2, it's good, below the key number of 3. Look for the Saints to have some success through the air. Even with their offensive line issues, I still like them at home here.
Yeah, I'm also on the Saints in this game, as I noted in my Thursday Night Football article over at thegameday.com. And the way I see this is that the Saints are just a better team on both sides of the ball than the Jaguars are. We've seen some very low efficiency numbers from Trevor Lawrence, who, by the way, is hurt. He's going to be wearing a brace on his knee for tonight's game. Wouldn't expect much running and scrambling out of him. That's a huge part. That's a big part of the dimensions of this Jaguars offense is Trevor getting mobile and out in space to create a lot of yards with his legs. But I don't know. There's just something about this game that screams like, in every sort of way, this should be a Jaguars win, which just makes me feel like it's going to be a Saints win. This is a perfect spot for the Saints to come back in after they lost to the Texans last week. I do think that the Saints are the better team here. They get Jamal Williams back to run the football. I think the way that this backfield will work the best is if Alvin Kamara does not have to shoulder all the heavy lifting. Now, I think if he gets back into his role as a guy that, changes in on some rushing downs and then takes the vast majority of the passing down work, and you let Jamal Williams, who has been, pretty much a hammer with the football in his hands, take the early down carries, I think we could see some goodness from there. I think this is a great spot for, a guy like Chris Olave as well as Michael Thomas and Rashid Shaheed, and we'll dive into them a little bit later. But I am with you on the Saints -1, now -2. To get into my first pick for this game, I have Christian Kirk over 51.5. It's now up to 52.5 receiving yards. And here's the thing for me. Christian Kirk may not be the wide receiver one for this Jaguars team. Pretty much everyone will tell you it's Calvin Ridley, but Kirk is kind of playing like the wide receiver one in Jacksonville right now. He's had over 49 yards or a touchdown in each of his last 5 games, has had a terrific target share lately. And the biggest part of all to me for this game, he's commanding a 33% target share versus man coverage. And the Saints rank second in the NFL in man coverage snaps. They run it about 35% of the time. Now, most defenses run zone in the NFL, predominantly zone, 75 to 80% zone. The Saints only run zone 65% of the time. They run man the other 35%. And it's kind of antiquated, but it works because they have, an island corner in Marshawn Lattimore that can hang around. But guess who Marshawn Lattimore is not going to be covering almost at all tonight? Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk's going to see Alontae Taylor in the slot. Alontae Taylor has allowed the most receiving touchdowns among slot cornerbacks this season, and he's also allowed the 8th most yards. The Saints, as a team, have allowed the 7th most fantasy points this season to slot wide receivers, and as Frank said earlier, that includes yards. So I love Kirk in this spot. He's gone over in 4 or 6 games. This is a spot where I think Kirk is going to break out. I bet him for, the purposes of the show. My play is 51.5, 52.5 receiving yards, but I also love his anytime touchdown at plus 240. It's a great play.
Yeah, this feels like a game, where Trevor Lawrence is not really at his best, and he'll have to throw more underneath to Christian Kirk rather than downfield to Ridley. And like you said, Ridley's being covered by Marshawn Lattimore, much tougher matchup. Totally with you on him here. I'm not hopeful of Ridley in this game, and Kirk is likely to be the primary target for Jacksonville tonight.
Yep. Let's move on to your next pick, and you are taking this Saints wide receiver.
Yeah, let's go with Chris Olave. I got this one at 59.5, but it's now at 62.5. I still like the over here, and it really comes down to a couple of reasons. Number one, Olave earns targets at a high rate, 26% target share. Most of his targets are downfield. He's got a over 15 average depth of target. So why is that good? It's because if he can get over this number in only 3-4 catches, while also seeing a lot of targets where he could really fly over this and make it a sweat-free bet for you. Olave's gone over this number in 4 of 6 games. He's taking on a Jaguars team that does not have top cornerback Tyson Campbell. They rank 25th versus receivers. And the thing with Jacksonville is their run defense has been really good. So it becomes more of a pass funnel where teams they're being inefficient on the ground. So they have to air it out a little more. And that plays right into Olave. I think, 62.5 is not really a high bar. He should eclipse this number in this favorable spot. He's my favorite Saint tonight.
Yeah, I definitely like Olave as well. All the reasons that you broke down are great. I actually have my eye on another Saints receiver that I will break down after my next play. But my second play for this game is I'm going back to the Jaguars side. And despite the fact that I am on the Saints tonight, I'm actually on Travis Etienne to go over 15.5 for his longest rush tonight. And, there's a little bit of science behind it. You think that the Saints are this elite run stopping team, and they've been good at it in the past. But this year, they've kind of fell off the wagon a little bit. They ranked 16th in defensive rush DVOA this season, and they allow an explosive run that is a run that is over 10-plus yards at a 12% rate, which ranks 13th in the NFL, at 13th highest, sorry. Now, we're looking at volume here. This is a play that, is very much exacerbated by healthy amounts of volume. Etienne's seen 18 or more carries in every single game this season. He continues to carry a 70% rush share opportunity for the Jaguars. He is the guy. There is no Tank Bigsby that is cut into his rushing attempts like we thought he was going to. Etienne has been the guy, and they've allowed him to really kind of get out there. And so he's hit this number in 4 or 6 games. The Saints have allowed a 16-yard rush in 4 of 6 games. And I think Etienne is going to be a big part. If the Jaguars have any shot at winning this game, it comes on his back, as it does most weeks. but none more in a game against the Saints, where I actually think this is going to be a sneakily high scoring game, and I think we're going to see a healthy amount of opportunities for him to go over this number. So ETN over 15.5 longest rush. Now, do you have any more plays that you want to break down before I add this little bonus play I found right before the show?
I don't. I just want to add a quick thing about E10. You're taking a high volume rusher who's one of the most explosive in the NFL. So completely on board with
and he's
that.
also broken 16 tackles. That's the most in the NFL this season. So, obviously you want the guy to be able to juke and get yards after contact. So there you go.
So as far as another play for this, I don't have another one. If I had to sprinkle on something, maybe a Taysom Hill anytime touchdown. I could see him vulturing one at the goal line, something ugly like that. Or maybe Jamal Williams in his return. Maybe they give him a larger role in the red zone. Like maybe they don't ease him in off injury. So anytime touchdown could sprinkle him there as well if you're inclined to adding another play. But for me, I'm just sticking with Saints -2 or -1. And Olave over 59.5 or 60, even up to 62.5 receiving yards. But what's your other play?
Yeah, so my last play is actually going to be Rashid Shaheed over 18.5 longest reception -130. And this is a crazy play because he's hit it in 4 out of the 6 games this season. And again, we're going back to what you said about Tyson Campbell being out. He's their deep cover corner in this game. And they play really well against against zone coverage. And I do think that Shaheed is going to get plenty of work in this one. I think it's really just his time to try and start taking over some of the work that Michael Thomas is leaving out in the field, because look, ever since Thomas got injured in 2019, it really hasn't been his wide receiver core anymore. And I think Shaheed brings a really explosive element every time he steps on the field. So I would love to see Shaheed go over this 18.5 number really early. I think Derek Carr, who throws deep a ton already, is going to chuck the ball deep and early in this one. So I would love to see this Rashid Shaheed 18.5 longest reception play as well. But that's enough of our Thursday night football bets, but we do have a same game parlay to give you before we wrap this one up and get out of here.
Yeah, so I put this one together. It's a long shot. It's basically laddering up Olave's receiving yards, betting him to get 100 plus, and it really comes down to he's a high volume target earner who wins downfield. Adding Taysom Hill, 25 plus rushing yards. Again, this is a long shot. It just feels like they could, give him some of those zone read plays where he runs and maybe breaks a few tackles. And because the Jags are so good at stopping the run, maybe the Saints try to get a little creative and incorporate some Taysom Hill here. If you're playing DFS, I like throwing Taysom Hill in one of those single showdown lineups just because he may not be that popular and he could vulture a touchdown. It's a good leverage play off of someone like Kamara. Maybe Taysom Hill takes a touchdown away. But I digress. This is our long shot of the night.
Yeah, I mean, we literally saw Taysom Hill playing like a true tight end last week. Like he had 6 catches. Like this is the Taysom Hill that we thought we were going to see a few years ago when the first time that all these fantasy managers picked up Taysom Hill for the first time, was like, oh my God, this guy's got quarterback and tight end eligibility. So we never just expected that he would become a rushing vulture, but yeah, the guy is versatile, can play all over the field. But that is going to be it for our Thursday night bets, and that will be it for this week's edition of Better Plays Ahead. Frank, why don't you go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you at?
So you can find me at social at FAMMIRANTETFJ. I'm on all platforms, posting betting and fantasy content. Look out for my weekly fantasy rankings. We'll be posting an update for tonight's game within the next hour or two. And, let's go Saints tonight.
Yeah, you absolutely want to be following Frank's rankings. Weeks 4 and 5, he was the number 2 fantasy football ranker in all of the fantasy space as per Fantasy Pros. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Swagman95, spelled exactly how it sounds. and all of us over at the Game Day